Okay, so we're very lucky today to be joined by Anna Hopkin, a good friend, but also British swimming champion and GB swimmer, bronze medalist at the Commonwealth Games and silver at the Euros. Anna, how did you get into swimming and what do you like about
it? Well, I guess I started just as your generic learn to swim kind of thing. But then my brother started at a club when he was quite young, and so I kind of just followed him when I was about 8, and a couple of my best friends were also joining, so it's kind of like a more of a social kind of thing that got me into it. But then I guess me and my friends were all kind of at a pretty good level, and we all joined a squad when we were about 10, and that's kind of when it started to get more serious, I guess. But I really took a break from swimming when I was about 13, just because I think the pressure and the time and the expectation was quite big for a 12-year-old, and it wasn't really something I was very good at dealing with. And so I kind of wanted to do other sports and just make sure I was enjoying it more than feeling all this pressure. So I then got back into it when I was 17, and I just kind of loved getting back into competing, but doing it all kind of on my own terms a bit more, and just enjoying it for swimming and not for all the pressure to succeed or anything else.
That's brilliant. So what's the thing that you really enjoy about swimming? Because I swam until level 4, realised that I wouldn't drown anymore, and stopped. And that's basically still my level. I can just not drown. What kept you going? What do you like about it? And what made you want to compete as well?
I guess maybe because I've come from quite a sporty family, it was like I tried all these different sports to basically find the one I was good at. And I think it became quite clear that swimming was going to be the one I was good at. And so I guess I've always wanted to have a sport and to be competing in a sport. It seems strange to me to not be doing some sort of sport. And I don't think I'd be very good at just swimming leisurely. I think I need some sort of aim or goal because it's a lot of training and there's a lot of just going up and down, and so you've got to have some sort of motivation to do that, because it isn't always that easy. But I obviously do enjoy the process and training and things, but the main aim of it all is obviously to race and to go to all these amazing places and perform well at the top level and things. So I guess that's the main enjoyment from it.
That's interesting. You are competing at the very top level now, and you said about your training. So what goes into training now? I know when we were at uni, you had trained before I'd woken up.
Yeah, unfortunately, swimming's one of those sports where you have to get up pretty early. At uni, I was when the pool at Bath was kind of being redone and we had to train at that school pool, I was getting up at 4:15, and we were starting to swimming at 5, I think. And then out in America, I've just been studying my masters. We would train from 6 to 8 in the morning, so I'd be getting up at about 5:20ish. But luckily for me, now I'm back in the UK and I've joined Loughborough, which is a national centre, and so they have a lot more flexibility around pool time, and I also don't have to worry about scheduling my classes or lectures around it. So I think they actually train 7 to 9 or 8 to 10, which is a nice lie-in for me, really.
Yeah, that's definitely not a lie-in in martial arts. If I started a class then, I would have no students. So it just shows the dedication of different sports. Besides your training in the pool, do you have to do other stuff as well? How much do you train, and what goes into being an athlete at that kind of level?
Yeah, so we'll typically get in the pool about 9 times a week, and so I guess another reason for training so early is so we have enough time in between, because we'll train again in the afternoon, so you kind of have to like spread it out throughout the day just to make sure you're getting enough recovery. And then we'll go in the gym 3 times a week for about an hour each, and then sometimes we do some sort of like land work, like core and flexibility stuff, which is obviously still important in swimming, but I know it's a lot more important for you guys.
Well, I managed to get by without it for a very long time. How's quarantine affected your training? Because obviously you can't see as many people. It seems like a team effort training.
Yeah, it is a bit weird, and especially because I've just joined a new team, I've not actually been training with them like physically at all. It's all been virtual, so that's quite strange. But I'm on about 3 or 4 Zoom calls a day. So we do, every morning we have a Zoom call where we do our like stretching and rehab stuff, which we usually do before we get in the pool. And then we'll do some sort of cardio, which sometimes it's a bike or a run, which is often also on Zoom. And then I'm lucky enough to have a big like swim spa tub thing in the garden, which there's only about 8 of us that have them. And so my coach likes to go on Zoom for that as well. So I kind of like hook her up next to the pool and she kind of watches me swim. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'll do gym. So I've managed to like source a bar and weights, and other kinds of stuff. So that's all in my garden, and we have another Zoom call for that. So it's a lot of Zooming, but in a way it's kind of nice because you can hear everyone in the background doing their work, and obviously you've got the coach kind of telling you what to do and motivating you and stuff. So it kind of makes you feel a bit less alone when you're training, because that is quite hard, training on your own.
Yeah, that's really good. It's something that I'm struggling with at the moment. It's trying to actually train myself, not teaching. Yeah. That's great because there's loads of people there. But when you have to train by yourself, then it's difficult. I'd rather just
it's hard to find the motivation to do everything properly.
I was going to ask you about your crazy fancy hot tub as well. That's the technical term, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's the brand.
So how is it training in that? It looks intense. It looks crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely different to being in a pool, because obviously in a pool you don't have any like waves or resistance from the side, or you're not on a tether type thing, so you just obviously the only resistance you have is the actual water. Whereas in the swim spa you've got jets coming towards you and you can set them from level 1 to level 10, and so that's obviously to try and keep you swimming in place. But then we also have a tether attached to us, and so that's like another level of resistance, and it works really well because you can, so long as I'm tethered, I can have the resistance of the jet pretty low, and so I can like alter the kind of swim speed, and so I can do my warm up and then do some like fast bursts and stuff with a higher speed. But it is quite hard because you're kind of everything is pushing you backwards, and you're trying hard to keep going, to stay in one place. And so I think it does put a lot more pressure like through the shoulders and the arms, which I've kind of noticed I'm getting quite sore shoulders and things, so I'm having to be quite careful about making sure I don't get injured and things.
Well, you're gonna look swole as soon as you're allowed outside. You can show off your mad gains. It'll be fine.
That's the goal. I mean, if most swimmers don't have access to a pool, then hopefully I'm making more gains than them. That's exactly. The goal, really.
You'll be able to laugh at them and their tiny shoulders.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the other things that I did in my vast research of swimming, literally about a day, was most swimmers are quite tall, and I've met you. You are not that tall.
I'm not.
You're not. What makes you so good then? If you're tiny, there's probably a better way of saying that.
No, I get that. I get that a lot. I'm 5'4", and I'd say the typical sprinter's probably like 5'10", often 6 foot, around that. So it is like quite strange to be this small, and I'm always racing against people much taller than me. But I think because I am small, I'm obviously lighter, which is good. I think for my size, I can produce a lot of power, so I have quite a high power to weight ratio. And I think, although my arm span's not very long, or like if I focus on lengthening out my stroke as much as I can, then that's kind of my way of swimming as if I'm taller, even though I'm not. So there's benefits to being tall as well.
Do you think it's motivated you being in a sport that is probably more advantageous to be tall, being small? Because in martial arts, it's actually better to be short, and I'm 6'1", so it does vary sport to sport, and I think it's motivated me to learn certain things because I've been taller. So has it motivated you?
Yeah, I think so. I quite like actually being seen as, like, when people look at me in a lineup or whatever, like behind the blocks, you kind of already discounted in a way. And so I quite enjoy proving people wrong and beating people who maybe seem to have a greater advantage than me. And if I'm still able to beat them, then I guess I'm doing all right. So I guess it does motivate me quite a lot.
Awesome. And you mentioned you just completed your master's degree. What is it like training as like the top level athlete and balancing that with academic work as well?
Yeah, it can be quite challenging. I think obviously I did it with my undergrad as well, but I wasn't swimming quite so many times a week, and I guess that was probably more of a struggle than my master's, just because the system in the US is so centered around like sports scholarships and student athletes and things. Like, that's how the college gets all of their money, is from like American football and some of the other, I mean, not so much swimming, but some of the bigger sports that have a lot of spectators. So it's obviously important for the college to support students as well as them being athletes, because that's kind of what generates all the money. So that means that you kind of get a lot more support for your sports schedule. And we would have like dedicated tutors and people to help us who were just for student athletes. And so like the rest of the student body would be in like have different people to help them, but we would kind of have a lot more support and separate places to study. And we would have people on our back, like if we got a bad grade, they'd be instantly asking like why, or do you need extra tutors or whatever. So it's definitely easier doing my master's than my undergrad, I'd say.
Is there any advice that you'd give to someone who's like going off to uni, still wants to train throughout?
I'd say you just have to be very organised, and you obviously know your training schedule and you know potentially your competition schedule, and so you can almost block out periods that you know you're not going to be able to study or do work, and so you then have an assigned amount of time that you have to get the work done. And even if that means finishing or submitting it a day early because you then leave for a competition, then just think in your head like that is the deadline date. Because I know I sometimes didn't do that, and you're almost like, oh, I'll find time on the bus, or I can do some once I've finished racing. And by that time, you know, you finish racing, you eat, and it's like 10 o'clock at night and you've got to race again the next day. And like the last thing you want to do is be trying to submit something that needs to be in by midnight. So that's definitely something I got better at, was like just prioritizing finishing work over watching Netflix or something.
Yeah. You definitely should have told me that at the start of our degree.
Yeah, my first year wasn't great, but
okay.
At least it count.
Yeah, I think you got better faster than I did, though.
Yeah.
So you're going to Tokyo, the Olympics. Are you excited? What's your thoughts on that experience?
Well,
hopefully.
Still have to qualify. But I mean, obviously it's now been postponed a year, and the position I was in at this point, like when British champs should have been, which is when we would have qualified, like I definitely, the times I was doing would have qualified me, but obviously they have to have like the official qualifications, which now won't be until next April. And so I'm just seeing it as like I've got a long period of time now just to improve even more. And obviously we're like during lockdown, I feel like I've kept my training up to almost the same level that I would be doing normally. And so we're not really going to be getting much of a summer break, because as soon as we can get back in the pool, it's just going to be like trying to get like the fitness back and get back to where we want to be. So it's going to be quite a full-on year, I think, but I'm quite excited to just see where I can get to and hopefully be in Tokyo and just see how good I can do, really. I'm putting no like limitations on myself, I think.
Awesome. And remember that I'm a really cheap and effective sports massage therapist.
Oh yeah, I still need to talk to British Swimming about getting you on the team.
Thank you. So I've got loads of young female athletes all coming up through my system. What would you say has separated you from everyone else to become like a GB athlete, and what would you give them as advice to get there?
I would say that obviously I've had kind of experience in the sport not enjoying it and struggling quite a lot when I was younger, and then obviously experience now where I just like loved the sport and enjoyed it, and just doing it for myself. And so I'd say what I've learned most is like you have to be in the sport because you love it and because you're doing it for you, rather than because you think it's what's your coach wants or what your parent wants or what your friend wants or something. So I think it sounds a bit cliche, like, oh, you've got to do what you love or whatever, but if you enjoy it, then even though you're getting up at stupid times or you're on a really hard session or you really struggle in 1 week, you still kind of have that internal motivation to keep going because you know that it's what you do really want to do. So I think that's definitely my advice, is just make sure it's what you enjoy doing, and if you're not enjoying it, then speak to people around you. Maybe you can change something to make it more enjoyable or make it easier. And I guess things like obviously college or university or whatever are things that could potentially upset that balance, but there's obviously things you can do to improve that and make it work. So yeah, I guess my advice is just try and like enjoy it and set your goals and make sure that they're goals that you want to do for you and not for anyone else.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely agree. I'm the last one of my team still competing because everyone else, I think, must have been doing it for their coach or just got into different things. And if you love something, you just stick with it and keep working hard. So yeah, that's brilliant advice. One more thing before we say goodbye. How hard is it to get to international level?
It is obviously very tough, I think, but then if you're dedicated and motivated enough and you're willing to put in the time, and I think for me, like, I've been lucky enough to have some really good coaches who I've really trusted, and they've been kind of open and honest with me about what I would need to do to get to the level where I want. And if you're prepared to kind of do what it does take and trust in the process and trust in your coach to get you there, and obviously it's kind of like a give and take thing, like your coach is obviously going to put in 100% and then the athlete also has to give 100%. So I think it's obviously tough, but if it's what you really want to do and you're willing to put the work in, then it's obviously possible.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thanks for telling them to listen to me. Perfect. What more do you want? It's a perfect interview.
Yeah, listen to
or else. That's how I get trust.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time out. I know you've been really busy, so I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Also, if you want to follow Anna on Instagram and Facebook and all those things, probably not Facebook, she won't add you. The other thing, Twitter.
Don't use Facebook.
The other stuff, I'll put it on at the end so you can do that, and I'll put a picture of that weird hot tub thing as well. So you get to see the weird ways that Anna's training through quarantine. Thank you very much. And I'll stop it there.